if you're an international student on an F-1 visa, there are chances that you might be confused about the concept of how you can really afford an international education. Maybe you can, earn some money while being on that F-1 visa status. And what are the different ways that you can do that? And when do you think you are eligible for which one of those? So all of these things we're going to be clearing out in this video. We're going to be talking about on-campus employment, we're going to be talking about CPT, we're going to be talking about OPT. I'm going to be telling you the differences between these, and I'm going to be explaining each and every concept very well, and I'll make sure you have no doubts towards the end of this video. But we also have one bonus, so stick around for that, where I'll be telling you a fourth alternative where you can basically be employed, you can earn money, and you won't be exhausting any one of these three. You won't be under any one of these three umbrellas basically, and you'll still be able to work, okay? And that's very legal. So stick around if that's something that you're interested in, and in case that's something that you are interested in, let's begin. Let's start talking about those. Okay, guys, now you need to understand that if you maintain an F-1 visa status, most of the things that you'll be doing, because you are currently a student and you're not authorized to work in the United States unless USCIS allows you to, or your school is basically giving you employment, okay? So that's where the first point will come here for. Basically, I want to keep this video really short, so I'm gonna be basically trying to run you through these, but I'll also make sure that I covered all of the points. Okay, so fundamentally the first point that you will see over here is on-campus employment. Now, on-campus employment is the one type of employment that you do not have to inform USCIS about. You do not have to go through them, and you can still work on campus. Okay, now downsides, you will be earning low. That would probably be very well towards the minimum wage, okay? Unless you are an experienced professional, you will be working over there at the minimum wage, which could be anywhere from $8 to $12, depending on really which state you are in, okay? Now, that might vary, of course. Now, that is on-campus employment. You're basically studying at XYZ Institute or XYZ University, and the same university gives you employment. So yeah, that's on campus. Now, you can work up to 20 hours per week if you're basically taking courses, taking any more than 4 units, because that makes you eligible for part-time work. And 20 hours, you can remember, per week 20 hours, this is like the part-time work threshold over there in the US. You cannot cross that. Okay, so if you're crossing that, that's illegal, and basically, you might be able to earn a little more, but that's not legal, and most probably your university will not allow you to do that. Okay, secondly, if you are doing this during vacations, you're working on campus, you can work up to 40 hours per week. Okay, from 20 to 40 hours per week, this will be considered full-time employment. Okay, even if you work 21 hours, remember this, that's full-time employment per week, that is. Okay, great. Again, the best thing, no approvals needed, and you can basically start working from the day one of your courses. As soon as your course begins, you can start working. Okay, great. I think I must have cleared that point. I will move on to the next one now, which is we're basically getting a little more complicated once we go into CPT, that's curricular practical training. And this is really, by the way, the first thing that you need to know is that not every program will ensure CPT. There have to be some eligibility rules, there have to be some requirements. So is your program eligible? First off, CPT is something that is going to be happening when you are studying, okay? So this is all while you are in college. It cannot happen after that. It is during your education. So your CPT has to be finished while you are completing your program, okay? One more thing over here. CPT requires that your program suggests basically supports CPT. You should be getting some credits for it or some grades for it. It should be a mandatory part of your curriculum, of the program's curriculum. And one of the most minimal requirements for that is that your program should be at least 12 years, 12 years, that's crazy. At least 12 months long, okay? So as soon as you finish 1 year of your program, remember that this includes the vacations that you get, so really that's only 9 months of studying about, so as soon as you finish that 1 year of your education over there, the first 2 semesters, or depending on the semesters or trimesters, whatever your university follows, as soon as your 1 year is complete, you are eligible now for the CPT. Okay, congratulations. And this can only happen after your first year, so you want the program to be as much longer as possible, of course. Now, one thing over here that you need to understand is that whenever you are working in a CPT, you need to have a job offer first. Okay, this is a mandatory requirement. You need to have an offer from an employer first. Now this can be off campus, this can be on campus. It can be really both, okay? Preferably you would be looking for off campus because, you know, on campus I already covered that. You do not need any approvals or anything. But if you're working off campus, you need to have basically a job offer first. Then you apply for the CPT registration, basically authorization. You apply for it to the USCIS and they will give you the clearance. Once you get the clearance, you can start working with the employer as you sought. Okay, so that's an important thing. And the position that you're working for, it should be very, very related to what you are already studying. Okay, so if you're studying something, maybe computer science, your job should be very, very related to computer science. Okay, that's just it. That's the requirement. Now, other things over here. If by chance, you know, this happens, you know, when you're working on your CPT, and you know, we have yet to go to OPT later on. That's something that I'll cover in a bit. But what I'm going to say is that if you exhaust your CPT fully, you're not eligible for your OPT. Let me tell you how you exhaust it, okay? So if you're working more than 20 hours per week, that's full-time employment, right? Full-time employment, you're working more than 20 hours per week and you're working for 12 months. If you've done 12 months of CPT full-time, okay, this is, remember, full-time is anything more than 20 hours, for basically under 40 hours, but more than 20 hours. So if you're doing more than 20 hours, that means that you will not be eligible for your OPT if you've already done that for 1 year now. Okay, so keep that in mind. Never finish your CPT completely. Okay, always make sure that you have these things in mind. Even if you're working with an employer, make sure that all of that is clear. Make sure that you have to give in your notice earlier because you cannot finish that 1 year of CPT. Okay, remember that. Great. Again, you should have the job offer beforehand, and you know, it can be 20 to 40 hours per week. And that's just it. You need to have it as a part of the program, really. Okay, now moving on to the OPT, which is, you know, it's kind of a complex scenario for a lot of people. There are some complicated rules and stuff, but I'll try to narrow it down and make it as simple as possible for you in this video. Okay, when it comes to the OPT, by the way, for non-STEM programs you have 12 months of OPT. For STEM programs you have 36 months of OPT because you get 24-month extension. So 36 months of OPT, and non-STEM programs get 12 months only. Okay, so keep that in mind. Make sure that whenever you're going for a program, you know which kind of a program is it. STEM means science, technology, engineering and mathematics. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, great. One more thing. For all of these programs, you should have an F-1 status. Okay, CPT, on campus, OPT, whatever it is that we're talking about over here, your F-1 status should be there. Secondly, whatever you're working in, even in the case of OPT, should be directly related to your field of study. But the one good thing over here is that you do not need to have an offer letter before applying to the OPT. Okay, you just need to inform USCIS by basically filing for the OPT. To get the OPT authorization, you can tell them that a prospective date, that you know, this is the date I'll be starting it in. But one bad thing about the OPT over here is that you need to have an offer within 60 days of your completion of the program. Okay, now again, I'll get back to that. There's two kinds of OPT basically: pre-completion OPT and post-completion OPT. So pre-completion OPT is the OPT that you can do before finishing your program. Okay, so let's say that you finished about 11 months of CPT and you still want to continue working, okay, while studying. Maybe your program is 2.5 years long, hey, who knows, right? And you want to use up your OPT now. You want to start using your OPT. Well, in that case, which I do not recommend doing that, by the way, you should try to stay in the country as long as possible. But hey, it's your wish if you want to do that, right? So if you file for the pre-completion OPT, what you will do is basically you have to file for the OPT anywhere from 90 days to the start of the job. Basically, if you get a job offer for this date, you know, there's 90 days before, that's when the window opens up for you. So, you know, 90 days before, 60 days before, 30, whenever you want to apply, you can apply basically, but you should be within this 90-day period, okay? So if you have the job offer, 90 days before that, you can apply. You can also apply 10 days before that. There's no restriction. I just want to make that clear, okay? Remember that to get the authorization, it can take up to 90 days for the OPT. Yes, it is somewhat a lengthy process and USCIS does like to take its time. So keep that in mind. One more thing, that's just for the pre-completion OPT, but one important thing over here is that if you're working part-time, by the way, you know, if you're doing less than 20 hours per week, then you're basically doing, you know, part-time work, and you get, let's say you are on a non-STEM program, you have basically 12 months of OPT, okay? What that means is that if you complete maybe 4 months of part-time work in your pre-completion. Basically, your degree has not completed yet, but you're doing 4 months of OPT work over here before the completion of the degree. What that means is that those 4 months of part-time work are essentially just 2 months of full-time work, okay? So 4 months of part-time work are 2 months of full-time work. So basically you've exhausted 2 months of your full-time OPT. That means that you already had 12 months of OPT, you exhausted 2 months of it. That means 10 months is still intact, and you can continue that after the completion of your program. Remember that, okay? Great. Now getting to the post-completion OPT. This happens after you're done with your program, after you're done with your degree. And remember that you need to apply for the OPT. Basically, the window opens up. Let's say that this is your terminal date, that your program ends at this point. So 90 days before, again, the same thing, 90 days before your window has opened up, okay? This is when you have to apply. 90 days, 70 days, 60 days, 50 days, 20 days, whatever it is. You can apply any time here, but you should apply within this time frame. You should remember that, okay? You do not want to go through this phase without applying. Don't get yourself in trouble. The next thing is that your degree ends over here. This is the time frame where you apply for the OPT. But remember, if you just shift it over here, this part over here, within 60 days over here of the completion of your program, the completion of your degree, you should have basically the employment that you're looking for. Okay, you do not need to have an employment offer, a job offer before applying. In case of CPT, you do need to have it, but in case of OPT, it's not required. You do not need to have an offer, but the offer should be there and you should start working. The start date should be within 60 days of the termination of your program. Remember that this is a complicated concept and sometimes people do not understand this, but it's something that you need to be prepared for before you even maybe, go through that stage. If you're prepared, I'm sure that you'll be able to manage it. Okay, great. A couple things over here that I might have forgotten. Apply before your degree completes. Part-time counts as basically half of full-time, and again, you are eligible after first year of study. By the way, yes, this was the point that I forgot. Again, same as CPT, you're not eligible within the first year. Within the first year, you can basically only work on campus employment, so that's there. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to tell you about the on-campus employment, CPT and OPT. I hope that tells you almost everything you needed to know. One more thing over here that's somewhat important that I did not point out here, but I was waiting for it to be towards the end, and this is that if you want to change jobs, basically during your CPT, if you want to change the employer that you're working for, you have to go through the whole filing process again. You have to file for a completely new CPT. You have to go through USCIS. They will take their time. Then you will basically be able to join the new job that you're looking for. But that does not have to be the case with the OPT. With the OPT, you do not need to go through USCIS. You will be informing them. I think that's through a web form. I'm not sure about that, but I know that for a fact that you do not have to get a new authorization. So that's something that is probably a good news to you, I hope, at least. The final thing, the surprise that I was talking about, and this is really important. A lot of people think that there are only these 3 ways to work in the US when you have an F-1 status, but there's actually one more that you can do, and that's called employment with an international organization. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, I'll tell you. Basically, you have a list of organizations that USCIS approves as international organizations that you can work with, and you will not be exhausting your CPT, you will not be exhausting your OPT, but you can just have an internship offer from these and you can start working with these, and these can be very well paid. So you will have basically one more means to actually be able to pay off your debt, pay off your living expenses, your groceries, anything you want really. So that's possible. Okay, now again, if you want to read more about which organizations they are and basically how you can get them, we'll be doing a short blog on those. We'll be listing down every single one of those organizations, maybe with links if possible, so that you can just visit them. Okay, but it's not ready yet. Hopefully by the end of this video, if it is ready, you will see the link in the description. If it's not ready, what you can do is you can go onto this website, YMGrad.com. you can sign up over here. As soon as you complete signing up, we will make sure that we inform you first thing. You'll be the first to know as soon as the list is on the website. That I can personally guarantee you. I will personally be sending it to you. Okay, so you will have the update. You can go onto these organizations, see if some of them have internship positions open. Again, remember that they need to be within your basically scope of the program. If you're studying mechanical engineering, you cannot get a job that is really related to data entry or anything, okay? So make sure that you keep those in check. It should be very related to what you are doing, and look for positions which fall in the niche that you are studying. And with that, I believe it should basically give you some extra funding and some extra experience as well. Okay, so I hope that this video helps you. I tried my best to do a lot of research. This literally took me a whole day's research, but I wanted to cover every single point. I wanted to make sure like no point is missing, and I believe that's something that we have very well accomplished in this video. If you like the video, again, you know what to do, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Again, keep smiling and be safe.